Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Unofficial Nitro RX podcast. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Thiemo Daily, and I'm joined once again by my brilliant co-host, Nabila Tejba. How are you?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad, thank you. Better after the first weekend of Nitro RX at Lydden Hill, which, with all the racing action this weekend, weirdly, I preferred it over the F1 in Montreal if we take it race for race, which I didn't think I'd be saying this weekend, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot that happened kind of in the F1, but with the Nitro Rallycross, I just felt like, there's definitely a lot of excitement. Loved how they ran with the new banking on the first corner. That was awesome. And some epic drama on that. Happened a couple times.
Yeah.
But
just a little bit.
And it was really cool just to see all the different cars. And I think no one knew what to expect from that the new electric Group E car, but I thought it was awesome.
Oh yeah, it was, again, like you said, we had the explainer episode last week, and this time around it did what we wanted it to, in a way of kind of like, now that we've seen it, we understand it a lot better and can get that extra bit of enjoyment out of it. And I thought it was a great tease for the rest of the season. Because if this is how it's starting, it's a really solid foundation to kind of build an in Nitro RX style jump off, and they'll definitely be doing that. And like you say, the banking that they changed a little bit on the first corner, and then the jump as well, where these little tweaks to this classic track, it was really good. I mean, you worry when they make these modifications to a classic track like that, but it worked brilliantly well. And I quite like the analogy they used in the presenting footage, where it's like sticking a moustache on the Mona Lisa. It works for some reason.
Yeah, I definitely think it really worked with everything that they did. And I mean, taking iconic Rallycross back to where its birthplace was, at Lydden Hill, and just seeing all the drivers out there, and everyone seemed to kind of adapt really quickly to it. And I just think the whole weekend had some great competition, even the battle rounds, everything definitely made much more sense watching it for certain. So yeah, it was very enjoyable.
So there's a couple of things I will say about that later on, but I mean, overall, it was kind of exactly what you're hoping from it. And again, now that we've seen it, it's a lot easier to get, and you're kind of just very much immersed in it, and you kind of just want to see everything a bit more. You want to have that zoom out thing so you can see it all clearly in front of you, so you're not looking around too much, because you just want to make sure you don't miss anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like you were saying though, first talking point though I want to get into, Group E, the cars look gorgeous, and it was pretty damn fun, the racing overall. I mean, like you say, the battle stages were good, but then we got the 8-car final on the Sunday, and it delivered.
Oh, it certainly did. I think every kind of round delivered. Like the semi-finals are a bit, because I think there was a couple cars missing because people were dropping out. I think
not enough gaffer tape for some of the cars at that point.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think it got a little bit confusing, especially if you were watching the highlights, just because it jumped around a lot. But when you watch the full thing, I think it makes a lot more sense. But definitely entertaining. That final, the final kind of threw me when I watched it, because I was like, I didn't expect what happened with the whole Travis Pastrana and Chris Meek situation that went on. I know what Travis was trying to do. If anything, you'd be expecting
those two to be the ones at the top, getting there at the end, but not being the ones going into the first corner, essentially, and just getting into a right skirmish.
Yeah, I know what like Travis had been saying. What he was trying to do was he was trying to go up the banking of that first corner the whole weekend, and it had been working. But for some reason, when he came back round, I don't know whether he just caught the grip at that point and it swung him back down, but he basically just cut straight in front of Chris Meek, and Chris Meek had nowhere to go but straight into the back of him.
It just turned into dodgers immediately.
Yeah, and it just kind of ruined both of their races, because neither of them finished. But yeah, kind of weird to see them at the back of the pack in the first place. I did expect them to be a lot higher, or like at least front end.
But again, that was what added to the fun of that, is the fact that it's first weekend, first kind of proper race, and the two people you kind of expect to be already out there right at the back. And then it's like, even if they had managed to come all the way through, that would have been a great story in itself. The fact that they both then didn't finish the result of that, you're like, well, it's the definition of anything can happen in this, and they proved that immediately.
Absolutely. I think there was so much that did happen with like around that track, with cars kind of almost going off track at times and then having to rejoin at points. But no, I think they did a fantastic job as an opening round for this.
I say cars going on track, off track, through bits of track in ways that you can only really have in this kind of sport. So it was kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And then what about the cross carts? How do you feel about them?
They're my new favorite thing. I don't know why I've not seen these sooner. I mean, I've seen them, but look, I've never really watched any of it. But again, Pastrana and Meek were saying when they were going up the commentary box between battle rounds and races that they've seen them as well, and they're like, "Oh, can we have a go in that? Can we be racing in that?" And honestly, I'd love to see them all in that. To be honest, I want every driver to. I want to put so many other drivers in those just to see what happens there. I mean, they're described as like a hornet nest of bees going around the place, and it very much sounded like that. And it just everything about it, the way they had to throw them around the corners and going over the jumps, is like, how would these such fragile things keeping together, but also they're so ridiculously sturdy at the same time. I mean, we saw a couple of crashes, but it just looked like a ridiculous amount of fun.
Oh, absolutely. I do think those have like a certain more fun level, but just by watching it, of how is it managing it. I think obviously it looks great when the cars are going around it, like supercars and next, they look fantastic around it too. And same with the Group E, but I feel like they can handle it a lot better. So you sit there and go, they're doing really well with those cross carts. And I am excited to see how that championship progresses, definitely.
Well, definitely. And I mean, to use an analogy I think I made in the last episode, it's kind of, if you're there for watching the Group E as the main thing, if that was the F1 equivalent, then Crosscarts, it still takes a lot of skill to drive them, obviously, but it's kind of like, here's the breather feeder series that'll keep you entertained in between everything else. And it's very much chaotic in the same way that Formula 3 is to F1. And it's kind of, you need that at the same time. And if you can have people caring about the small stuff, then that's brilliant, because you can keep them there for the entire weekend then, because they're like, oh yeah, like we love this, but look at these cross carts. Look how silly they are and look how fun that is.
Yeah, I definitely think all of the feeder series did a really good job at keeping the competition high and just generally keeping the entertainment there. And it was fun seeing how a lot of the drivers managed in the next category and supercar category.
Yes.
Yeah, like Crosscar, because there's just all of them. But no, definitely very exciting, and I enjoyed all of it. I mean, did you see the roll that happened? I think that was in the supercar category on the first day.
That was, I mean, again, this is what I'm saying about, you want to make sure that you're always paying attention, you're not missing anything, because it could be weirdly a blink and you miss it moment, but it was just like, oh, okay, and this is just kind of business as usual, this role, but it was just, again.
Absolutely. I think with how quickly the laps were as well, like everything happened so quickly, you kind of just had to be on it, and all of a sudden the race would be over, and so much drama happened in like it's mainly the beginning laps, and then I felt as the laps progressed, everything kind of settled in more as the drivers kind of ended up where they were. I didn't see so many people coming back if they were behind, if that makes sense.
That was my problem with the Saturday for me, with why I think maybe it lackluster or something, or maybe it's just first round cobwebs being blown away. But it was just the fact that for a lot of the one-on-one battles, okay, it was like 3 or 4 laps depending. I've lost track already, because it's anywhere between like 3 and 6, and it's all like once, and I've forgotten already. But it was kind of like, once one of the drivers decided to do the Joker lap, doesn't really matter which one did it, you kind of knew what the outcome was going to be, because they could get close but just not close enough, and you, like you say, the race is just over like that, and there's just not enough time. And it worked better for the races on the Sunday, because there were just more cars and more options for craziness there. So I don't know if that's just something they need to look at, or if that's just something that we'll find out and it'll improve upon when we see more racing later on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does also definitely show kind of when you are leading the brackets as 1 in 12, or like the category of car, when you've got the fastest person versus the slowest person in those battle brackets, it does kind of become a little bit slower, if that makes sense.
That's why I'm kind of hoping that if we have more of that as the season progresses, and if it's less alone, then maybe the slowest person will adapt and learn a bit more, and they won't be as, maybe they'll still be the slowest person, but they won't be as slow, so they'll be able to give it, whoever they are up against, a bit more of a run for their money then. So we might get that balancing out, which again would be ideal to see, because it's the progress you want to see. You want to have everyone on the same level there.
Definitely. I think one of the things that needs to be looked at is the smashing of the poor little barrier on that side.
Silence
and that's
that poor thing.
Penalties too.
3 seconds every time someone smashed that, and you could be doing a drinking game out of that with the amount of times. Honestly, it was ridiculous. And again, obviously, then even in the last race, the commentary was like, and of course, it's been hit again. It's like, what has this poor thing done to anyone?
Yeah, I don't think you could keep up with how many people hit it as they were going around. Like in all of them, they're just like, and that's 2 seconds there.
Whether you can, if you think, were you even trying to avoid driving into that? It just looked like you think you're getting extra points for this. No, you're getting a time penalty.
Yeah, the time penalties were very interesting because obviously there was a couple of hits in like, I think it was the last chance qualifying.
Hits, car on car hits. We'll specify
yeah, car on car hit. Sorry. Yeah, car on car hit, like driving into the side. That was a penalty. But I think there was sometimes a little bit of confusion as to whether it was a kind of on purpose hit or a kind of had nowhere to go, hitting in the side. Like the Travis Pastrana, Chris Meek one was definitely that just ended poorly.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens, but then there was another, and I was watching those, and I was like, the car's here, and you're going here, and you can see it. So are you just?
Don't mind a bit of ambition, but that's maybe a bit too cheeky.
Exactly, but so I did wonder if like whether penalties might get a little bit harsher, or whether that was just an accidental kind of tap, or was it I'm just going to nudge you out the way. This was with Martel, and I can't remember the other driver's name, which is really bad.
They've put so many head to head over the whole weekend. It's like they've probably avoided each other at some stage, so I just can't think of the difference. I need to start making notes while I'm watching it if I'm not careful. So.
Yeah. But definitely all enjoyable all the way around.
Oh yeah, and I mean it was this kind of thing you're saying about the hits. Most of the time, you can tell pretty quickly if any of the drivers have gained an advantage off it. So it's a lot easier to tell when someone should be penalised and when not. Whereas in other sports, you generally shouldn't be hitting anyone anyway. So that's more or less a slam dunk. Whereas in this instance, like, well, you've both just screwed yourselves there. So you've kind of punished yourself in a way we don't need to take care of that. And I've kind of preferred that more hands-off attitude with it. Then you've got something that is as clear cut as don't drive into the bloody barrier. Oh my God, you've all driven into the barrier every single time. Whereas if you're driving into another car, it's a little bit more, okay, we figured out that's a lot easier to deal with as well. So it's just, it takes care of itself in its respective ways.
I'm curious to know if there's a way of making the barrier sturdier that you don't want to drive it because you will damage your car. Because that seemed they just hit it and nothing happened. They just tore it apart. So either like a tire wall or something that you can put in there that definitely makes it kind of avoidance, because it was almost like their apex was that barrier.
Either that or you go silly in the other direction and you do have it porcelain, but you make it so it's like the Joker lap in a way where it's not on that same bit of track, but it's a bit far off. You have to go out of your way for it, but if you hit it, you do get a bonus point for like style or flair or something. Well, I don't know if that'd be something that would be interested in there. It depends on the track, I think, and how far wide you can go before you really kind of lose it.
Definitely. That would actually be quite entertaining. Let's add some bits. If you clip it with your rear,
I'm just thinking like old Top Gear. What would they do with motor racing?
Yeah, let's make it more exciting. Not that it wasn't already exciting enough.
I would say if they're hitting it anyway, we might as well get some use out of it rather than just 3-second penalties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got to pitch that idea, I think.
I'll say I don't know why they're not coming to us sooner. We've got all the good ideas over here. Honestly. Were there any drivers though that impressed you the most? Because I mean, we were going through the names for everyone last week, and there's an outtake of me just absolutely losing my mind trying to pronounce everyone's names in that one. So we're still I'm still learning at least. You've probably got them all memorized because you're much more professional on this than I am. But who impressed you this weekend?
I think one of the main ones for me was definitely Robin Larsen. I mean, from the get-go, he was winning everything out at the front the whole time. And I know this is the second season for him back. It's a new car. But last season, he, as I was saying, was struggling quite a lot. And I think it's really nice to see the growth that he's had over this last year and getting into the new season and really committing and achieving that outcome. And I think it was awesome to see, like, winning first day, winning second day. It kind of all just went perfectly for him.
And so then the other driver, that consistency there that you want, and like you say, it's been a big gap between last season and this season, so it's good to see that momentum carried forward as well.
Absolutely, and I think with the caliber of drivers that was still there. I mean, you still had people that were racing from last year coming back into this year. So it's not like he was one of the very few that was racing last year coming into this year. It's kind of similar people. So definitely nice to see the growth. That car was working really, really well. Like that team, the whole team did really well. And I think also Fraser Mcconnell, because not only was he in the Group E category, but he also jumped back into supercar as well. And I thought that was awesome to see that he held his own in both, because obviously winning the supercar category and then P4 in the Group E, and it would have been a podium had it not been for a 3-second penalty. It was, definitely really exciting to see how he handled both and still managed, really well in the championship over them.
Yeah, I mean, I have him in my list of drivers that impressed me as well, just because great entertainment all weekend. And again, that car, it's kind of, because again, if you're coming into this fresh and you're seeing these crosscars and supercars and Group E cars, just like, right, let me just try and memorize all of these so I know who's who immediately. And then, which is basically impossible in the crosscars anyway, because they all look pretty much identical. His car as well, I kind of latched onto that in some other ways because you've got the Jamaican flag on there immediately and this very distinctive design there. And it's like, okay, I can spot that. And for no other reason, I'm going to support this because it's just easier to figure out who you are and keep an eye on you. And then he delivered all weekend, like you say, across both. And it was just kind of great to see that. And again, for me, Michaela, we talked about it last week. What could she do coming into this? And they talked about her having the kind of a go at Rallycross last year in Florida. And that seems to have been all she needed to do to get up to speed with it, because she went and had a great weekend here. And what was it, third on the podium in the end after winning, I think, a semi-final. Could have been a heat. I lost track of what happened where.
No, you're right. It was a semi-final. She won the semi-final. I think what was really cool about her was, so I'm not sure, I might have read somewhere else that she has done some rallycross before. I'm not sure if she's done European rallycross or something like that. So I think she's got some knowledge.
But she's been in that area before, but again, not a great deal.
No, definitely a good experience in that though. And I am wondering whether driving the Extreme E car, like being electric and everything, of whether, oh no, wait, her category is not electric, I take that back. But just generally the way Extreme E is in handling that kind of like, because that first corner was basically straight sand. But I
mean, the last race for her, she just perfectly handled that, and it's kind of survival was key there, and a lot of other drivers didn't quite manage it there, and she just did exactly what she needed to. Which at the end of the day, you got to be there to be on the podium. So
absolutely, and it's nice to see some female representation. There should be a little bit more. I'm hoping we'll see a few more. There was one in Crosscarts as well, Frida Enholm, but I'd like to see more. It'd be nice if there's a female in the Group E category by the end of the year.
I was going to say, I mean, there's a couple of other drivers from Extreme E as well. I can think of them like, this is right up your rallies. Why are you two or three not in here as well? Just come on. And even as well, I don't know if we were talking about this on this podcast or just off somewhere else, but it'd be good to see drivers from other categories having a go in this, because the more kind of different categories motorsport you have a go at, better overall driver you are. So, W Series, it's got a spread out calendar. It probably doesn't clash with this too much. Grab a couple from there and throw them in a crosscart or something and have a bit of fun. It'd be, who knows, could prove for a good overtake in W Series later on. Like, where's that come from? Yeah, well, Nitro RX.
Absolutely.
Then the last driver that just impressed me was the one in Crosscart, Riku Hookah, just because, again, a bit like Michaela, just a speedy little demon there, and just kind of it just feels like you can see the speed much more in those crosscars than you could see in any of the other cars, because there's just nothing on them. They're just like little Hot Wheels cars that you just kind of remote control and go whizzing round, and he was just on a whole other level, it felt like at times, and just impressed me a good bit there. So he gets my shout out.
Yeah, I think definitely all-round good drivers, but it was nice to see other people kind of dominating rather than constantly saying it's Travis.
So there was that variety that we wanted.
Yes, absolutely. I remember us saying, like, were we going to be worried about that? I do have to say, for Chris Meek, like, I can understand, like, going from rallying where you're the sole person on the track and then all of a sudden having people everywhere.
I
don't know whether he's done rallycross before, but I think definitely might have been a little bit overwhelming. But yeah.
Well, every
definitely
time they interviewed
intrigued.
him over the weekend, he kept saying, I don't know what's going on, what's happening here. I'm just learning. I'm trying my best.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, that's my discipline. Like, you're used to being all by yourself. At least races, you know, there's other people racing around you on the track, but rallying, it's just you. And then all of a sudden, you just have cars coming out of nowhere and everywhere from the dust clouds. And oh, I just hit someone. Oops.
Let's hope nobody saw that. And everyone just turns and looks, God damn it, you took Travis out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was some other talk was just for race coverage stuff, which I just feel like is worth touching on. And again, maybe it's first race of the season and we can always be given, but I'm always a bad cop regardless. So I got to say these things. Could have done with a little bit of better camera work at times. I felt like there were a few times during some of the races where I felt like we were missing out on various bits of action or focusing on the wrong driver. And it's kind of like because the races are so short as well, you want to see everything at once. You don't want to be going back and trying to find stuff. So the drone shots were quite good though. I take that because it's interesting. They've been using more of those in motorsport lately. Extremely, they use them really well, and I feel because given the terrain, you kind of have to use them. But then when they've tried using them in Formula One, hasn't really worked for me in terms of adding anything. But here it worked quite well because you can see the entire track. I think you either need that for the drones. You either need a track that is so big like Extremely, or you need it as small as something like Lydden Hill, where you can probably see the entire track from the drone if it just does a 360 panoramic. But yes, so need a bit more of that, and you can follow and keep up with the speed of the cars a bit as well.
Yeah, I did notice like the commentators would be talking about a couple of people, and then it would kind of shift focus to somewhere else, and then they'd be like, "Oh, but you're watching this person." Talking about a battle that was still happening behind. Definitely
focused on car one, but car two is like, that's what I want to be seeing.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the only other bit was that for Saturday in particular, just because there was so much happening, we had the graphic in our last episode about how to explain what's going on with the battles and everything. Could do with like a constantly updating version of that, so you can see who's progressing where and everything, because otherwise you're turning yourself into that meme of woman trying to calculate what the hell's going on.
Absolutely.
And that's I don't have enough brain power for that at the weekend.
Yeah. Adding on that, I think it would also be nice if they kind of put that out on social media as a reference tool to go back to, because there was times where I was like watching and then I was like also trying to look at social media to see like, wait, was it this person who won this battle? So maybe just like throwing up a story.
Because if you've got this person,
battle number one,
who are they going to be coming up later? Maybe
exactly.
Try and see it as it converges then. But
yeah.
Again, they'll listen to this, they'll take it on board, and they'll put it in time for the next one, so it's fine.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no criticism coming from us, just things that, what we'd like to see as onboard spectators of
or just
things that I like.
The experience.
Exactly. And I'm one of those people that I do, even when I'm watching the race, I look at social media and things like that. And I love to have that kind of instant update. So with a story,
you want to be fully immersed
like
in it, so from all different angles. So
exactly.
But I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, and I'm not going to be here, because you know what? The hosts and the presenters and the comms, all of that, I loved all of that. It was a very chill vibe, great chemistry between all of them. I mean, the pit lane reporting, they jumped her so many times, and she always had something good and something useful to say. And then I can't remember the name of the other guy, but he was just off living his best life, doing whatever the hell he was doing, either just getting a haircut or a tattoo or whatever. But again, the drivers coming in and out and between all of that and just really interacting with everyone there, and especially with, like we were saying earlier, Travis and Chris coming into the comms box and giving their own opinion. You're commentating on a couple of the bits. I mean, it felt at one point that one of the commentators, he had trouble getting rid of Travis in terms of like, yeah, you've got to go race. You can't stay here because otherwise you miss your own race. But It was nice to see all that balance between everyone.
Absolutely. I am a big fan of bringing a driver in who, like, that kind of expertise of someone who's been around the track and then coming into the commentary box. I'm personally a massive fan of that. And I think Andrew Coley always does a fantastic job in commentary. And I mean, he's done a lot of the commentary on Rallycross, Extremely, things like that. So definitely.
So you can hear the passion in his voice every time. I mean, you have the other one, and he's just kind of there and he's playing it up the crowd. Then you've got the guy who takes it very seriously, but it works perfectly in this, that nice yin and yang.
Yeah. And I love how like fast paced it is constantly. Like there's always something to be saying. There's always
social races. You need to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
any final thoughts on the overall weekend then?
Honestly, I just thought it was an all-round great weekend. It was really nice to see this Nitro Rallycross being brought global. Great turnout from what I saw, like loads of people taking it in, getting over to the race. And I think they just did a really good job of making it exciting for all the different categories. So yeah, absolutely. Awesome weekend. And I'm involved now. I'm excited for the next one.
I've got to agree. And I think the thing I'll add on to that is you saying that it was good turnout for people that were there. It was at times watching on TV, you could hear the commentary. It sounded as if you were there and it was being played out over the loudspeakers, which you hope that they would also hear that if you're there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just watching and you've no idea what's going on. So it's good for that. And also going back to the other presenter who I will learn their names at some point. I just do not know right now. The guy I think it was getting a tattoo. Again, he's going around all these places, talking to fans, talking to people where they've bought the goods or services that they're promoting at the event there. And it's a good way to get them out on TV and show them a bit of that, but also to remind everyone who's come for the race, oh, there's also this part of it. And it all feels very inclusive there, and everyone's mingling in. You've got all the drivers wandering around everywhere. And like you say, it's got me properly excited now for the rest of the season. And it's a long season, and we're going to have to wait a bit, unfortunately, for the next one because it's in July. And not the top end of July either, which is frustrating. But, it should be good fun. And like you say, if this is how it's starting, then we're in safe hands, I think.
Definitely. And I think what's nice is with how close everything is at the beginning, I think we'll have some good racing the whole time. Like, I don't think anyone's going to run away with it. And I do expect to see a lot of changes in championship leaders and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm new to this, but I'd be very surprised if this is one of those championships where someone manages to run away with it, because you see how quickly something can go wrong. And if in doubt, someone will drive into a porcelain barrier and screw themselves over and get a 3-second penalty.
Yeah.
Well, that is it from us for now. We will be back possibly before the second round. We're still figuring everything out on that one, but we'll figure that out and we'll let you know, and we'll have some great stuff for you soon. But if you can't wait to see more of us in the meantime, then you can find my motorsport articles over on Is It Fast. And if you want any other motorsport content, I've got my motorsport interview series on the Curbs and F1 podcast, the Undercut podcast. Nabila, where can people find you?
You can find me on all of the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok. I partake in a little bit of Twitter and things like that. And any questions, shout outs, just get in touch. We're always looking for any ideas that you guys have and want to hear more of, or if there's anything specific. And we are hoping to bring you some guests in the next few shows. So that's super exciting.
It definitely will be. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that, and we'll be back before you know it. Thank you for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.